Hey everyone, and welcome to the Road to Full-Time podcast. I'm a little bit down. I'm just going to go ahead and start the podcast off just right away with that because it's not the way I planned on recording this podcast. Just real quick, for those of you who follow the YouTube channel, my podcast has been a video podcast for the past 2 episodes, I guess. And I am I'm not able to make this one a video podcast. I could technically fire up a webcam and do it that way, but I don't like the way that looks, so I'm just going to stick with audio for this one. So that's one reason why I'm down recording this podcast. But the next one is actually the theme of this episode. So the theme of this episode is take care of the client, they will take care of you. And so what I mean by that is I'm going to just kind of like I talked about with the last podcast about the little Instagram story. If you haven't heard that one, go check that one out. This one is going to be a small story, but I really like the meaning behind this one as well, because this is just some things that's happening to me on the journey to keep my business full time and to grow it as much as possible. And the reason I'm doing these, for lack of a better term, story time episodes, is because I've gotten tons of emails and comments that people really like this type of format because it's a real world experience, and it kind of gives them an idea of if they were to start their own thing, this might be the kind of things that they would run into with their business. And so what I mean real briefly, and I'll get into it a little bit more detail, is when I take care of the client, they will take care of you. I basically mean kind of go out of your way to help the client, especially if it's a brand new client. So to start off this story time episode, what it's going to be is it's basically I'm going to tell you about a shoot that I went on. Actually 2 shoots that I went on, and kind of had to go out of my way to make it happen for them, and it really paid back in maybe a possible job, another possible job. It paid back in a money sense as well. So let's start out with the first one. The first real quick story is I was contacted by a company that's not local to me, and they have a client who is basically selling a building. So it's a business, and they're selling this building. They're probably going to move out of it, and it's a commercial building. So the business is actually running out of that building right now. And so they said to go out to the building, meet with the regional manager that's there. And I need you to get external photos. I need you to get internal photos, stuff like that. Originally, it did plan to use a drone to get higher elevation shots. However, for those of you who fly drones, you know that it's not likely that you can fly near an airport. And so when they were talking about the shoot with me, they said, do you think you'll be able to fly the drone? And he said, there's a problem. There's an airport that's right across the street. And I said, if it's right across the street, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And when I got there, he wasn't lying. The airport was directly across the street from that office building. The flight tower was right there. There was a parking lot, flight tower, and then all of a sudden, airport runways everywhere. So there was a very highly unlikely chance that I was going to be able to do that. So I didn't even bother. I just told him I wasn't going to be able to do it. I could do the tried and true trick of getting higher elevation shots by standing on a ladder and using a monopod to try to get around 20-25 feet up in the air, but that was about it. So they were okay with that. So I kind of went with the shoot. I went forward with the shoot, getting the interior, getting the exterior. But what this particular building was a commercial building, or a commercial. I don't really know how you would classified. I guess it's a equipment rental place. It rents out like backhoes, bulldozers, stuff like that, forklifts, all kinds of stuff. So they have a large yard, a large back area where they store all of the rental. And so I was walking around the building. I kind of got all the interior stuff first. I was walking around the building, and I saw that there was a bunch of machines that were moving around back there. I didn't exactly have like a hard hat or anything like that on, so I didn't get, all in all, I didn't get basically 2 of the shots that they needed. I tried to do my best, but again, there was a lot of stuff going on back there. I didn't feel comfortable walking around there when they had, bucket trucks swinging stuff around everywhere, so I didn't even bother. So I got all the shots that I needed, sent them to the guy later that night, and the next day, actually I take that back. I sent him to him in the afternoon, and a little bit after he got the photos, he gave me a call, which I knew that's probably not going to be the best experience if I'm getting a call from him, because usually they just write back saying those are great. Let's go with it. So he called me. That was my phone going off. He called me, and he basically said, did I have any shots of the back area? And I told him that, number one, the sun was like directly in my face. So even if I got a shot, it'd be kind of crappy. The sun was, there was no clouds in the sky. It was just pure sun. I could have dealt with it, obviously, but I told him that there was a lot of machines moving back there, and I didn't really feel comfortable going back there. But I can go back and get another shot at another time if I need to. So he said, yeah, if you could do that, and this was all on a Friday. I said I can go out there on a Monday, and try to get the other shots. I only needed about 3, maybe 2 or 3 shots. So what basically happened was I realized that I had an appointment on Monday. Wasn't able to get out there and do that on a Monday because I wouldn't be able to make it back in time. So I went out on a Sunday. The bad part is the business is closed and it's all gated. And just to not give too much detail because it would require maybe a 45 to an hour long podcast. Basically what it was I got to the place, there was a gate around the whole thing, a fence around the whole thing. I honestly debated on jumping the fence because I needed to get in that lot. Glad I didn't because that would have been trespassing, obviously. So there was a fence in the back and I couldn't get around the fence because there was a large railroad area back there and it was all gated off and blocked off. So I ended up driving around the way, and I found that there was a spot where I can get down, cross the railroad tracks, and go over to the back gate and get access to where I needed to get to. So all in all, what happened was I got down there. I fell. I actually slipped and fell because it was a really steep hill to get down to that railroad area. And I didn't know that I cracked my lens. I didn't know that I basically dug out a piece of glass in my lens, and it didn't show up. Thankfully, it didn't show up on the shots that I got after that. I don't know why, but it was a carve out of my lens that was directly in the center of the lens. So it didn't show up in the shots. I don't know how lucky I got with that one. However, when I finally got back and I got back to the car and I was looking at the photos to make sure I got the shots that they needed. I saw some like grass, some leaves or something that was sticking out of my lens. So I was like, okay, I guess I just didn't clean it good enough. And then I saw something that looked like a scuff on my lens, or on my front element there. So I'd scratch it off with my fingernail, try to get it off, and it wasn't coming off. So I got a closer look when I was pulled over, and it was definitely a little dig in my glass. So that is the other reason why I'm not recording this podcast in video is because I need to test out that other lens, because the lens that I usually use to record video is that particular lens. Thankfully, it wasn't my wide angle, because my wide angle lens is the one I typically use 99% of the time for real estate stuff. So I got lucky there. But this other lens is kind of like it's my 24-105 kit lens that came with a Canon 6D. So it's not. It's a good lens. I like it, but it's not the one I use all the time, thankfully. So that's kind of what happened there. So when I got the photos back, I sent them to him a day early because he was expecting them on Monday, and I got them to him on Sunday, even though he probably wasn't working on Sunday. I still sent them to him earlier, and he basically wrote back saying, super happy with with how working with you worked out. It's been a great pleasure. The quality is awesome in the photos. It's exactly what we needed. And I sent him the invoice, and then he actually sent me more money in the invoice than I asked for. I didn't think PayPal would let you do that because that's what I use for my invoicing service, but he actually sent more back. So that's one thing. Where I kind of went out of my way. He didn't know the whole story about me crossing the railroads and doing all this stuff, but I basically did everything I could to get him the photos earlier than what I expected. And so it kind of came back kind of came back in possibly another job. If he ever has another job in North Carolina, he'll obviously hit me up first. But then he also paid me back a little bit more than I invoiced him to. So that was very nice. So again, taking care of the client, they will take care of you. That's a really good example as well. So the next example actually just happened yesterday, and so this one is a drone video shoot that I went on, where a guy wanted to get a drone shot of a friend's farm, like a 50-acre spot, and basically just wanted to make like a montage video of the farm. So drove out there. It was about a 45-minute drive away. Drove out there, got the footage of the drone, and they were really pleased. They loved seeing it fly around. I let the lady that owned the farm, I let her fly it, and she was really excited. She doesn't really do that kind of thing, but she was really excited to fly around, and they just had a really nice experience. So what that turned out to be afterwards is something that I never thought I'd get into, but it could possibly be, let me say that, it could possibly be a reoccurring job when it starts to warm up and get into spring and summer, of me videotaping. Gosh, I still don't know what it is technically, but it's like sheep herding. This lady trains dogs to do sheep herding, and so what they want is a drone to basically sit really high above the arena that they're doing it in, and shoot straight down, and it'll kind of videotape the path of the dogs doing all the herding. That has no business part of it on my website. Like, I've never put that I could do drone for sheep herding, but it's a kind of a cool little experience that could be a reoccurring thing because they do it often. And so I would be called out to just basically sit my drone up right above the arena and just pay attention to the drone, make sure it doesn't drift. But basically, all I have to do is just sit my drone up there, point it down, and let them do their thing for 10, 15 minutes. So that turned into where I was working with the client, working with, being personable with them at their farm, and just having a good time for about an hour, to where now I have a possible reoccurring job that's coming up. So again, taking care of the client, they will take care of you. These are just a couple ways where I just did some simple things. Obviously, I almost destroyed a lens, but I just did some simple things to get them what they needed, and it's paying me back already. So I just wanted to kind of briefly go over that, just because, again, these are a lot of questions that people get of, how do I get new clients, or how do I keep clients, and how do I keep getting recurring business? Basically, just being personable, being nice, and delivering kind of that whole thing of under promise, over deliver. I think that's what it's called. That kind of thing, where you kind of say I could do this, but then you just go to that next level and get them exactly what they needed, but maybe a little bit earlier, or give them something better than they wanted, better than they expected. So that was just a really cool thing I wanted to share. This is something I thought about while driving back from that farm, just because I was really surprised that this turned out to be a simple drone shoot that took about an hour, maybe an hour of editing, to where now it's like a reoccurring thing. So again, just some little fun things to think about. But that's basically the podcast today, guys. Thank you for joining me in this podcast. Hopefully next week I can get I can check my lens to make sure that it's good. At the most, I think I've ever seen like a gray haze in the very middle of the photo, but I'm still testing it out to see, because I think it has to depend on exposure. If it's underexposed, I'll see the gray haze more. If it's overexposed, then it's not really as visible. So I'm playing around with it to see if it's good. But that'll probably be next week's episode. It'll probably be a video episode as well. So this is just an audio episode only on YouTube, but this is going to be the normal podcast that you guys have listened to. But thank you guys for joining me in this week's podcast, and I'll see you next week.